Mr. Speaker, since February 7th, the Prime Minister has given us different versions of the story to try and end this corruption scandal. In the beginning, he said that the allegations were false. Then the current Attorney General said that neither the Prime Minister or his office pressured the former Attorney General. We know that none of this is true. When will the Prime Minister stop misleading Canadians? The Honourable House Leader. It's important for Canadians to know that Canadians have to have the opportunity to listen for themselves, and that's exactly why he waived solicitor-client privilege and cabinet confidence. We know that the members who sit on the Justice Committee asked to hear witnesses, and they heard their testimony, and all the facts are now public, and Canadians can hear for themselves. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Minister's first response to these allegations were simply that they were false, that he never put pressure on the former Attorney General. In fact, the current Attorney General had the replacement to replace the former Attorney General who refused to go along with the political interference, said, and I quote, "Neither the Prime Minister nor his office put my predecessor or me under pressure." We now know that that wasn't true. So why does the Prime Minister find it so hard to say things that just aren't true?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Canadians be able to hear for themselves, and that's exactly why Justice Committee meetings took place in public. Justice Committee members sat down together, they set parameters for a discussion. These allegations, for the entire period of these allegations, the Prime Minister waived solicitor-client privilege as well as cabinet confidence so that Canadians could hear for themselves, Mr. Speaker. Something we heard at committee was that the rule of law in Canada is intact, that the rule of law was followed at all times. These were decisions for the Attorney General to take, and it's important that Canadians note that we will continue to raise the bar so that we can continue to support and improve our institutions.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Order.
So their defense, Mr. Speaker, is that everything's okay because they got caught. That's not going to cut it for Canadians. Nobody's buying the Prime Minister's excuse. The phone call between the former Attorney General and Michael Warnick made it crystal clear. Michael Warnick says multiple times that the Prime Minister was firm. He says he was, quote, determined, quite firm, that he's in a firm mood about this, that he's in a pretty firm frame of mind about this, and finally, and I think he's going to find a way to get it done one way or another. Now, the former Attorney General has implored her colleagues to let truth be the authority rather than authority be the truth. So when will Liberals finally start telling the truth?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Justice Committee set parameters. There are members from all recognized parties that sit on the Justice Committee. For the period in which those allegations have been alleged, the Prime Minister waived solicitor-client privilege as well as cabinet confidence because Canadians should be able to hear for themselves. And that's exactly why those meetings took place in public. Within those meetings and when witnesses appeared, gave their testimony, additional documents were requested. Those documents have now been provided to Justice Committee members. We know that they can make decisions for themselves. We have confidence in our institutions, and Canadians can have confidence as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Charbonneau.
The Honourable Member for Charbonneau-Saint-Charles. The Prime Minister has said many things he knows to be untrue. We know that Michael Warnick placed the call on behalf of the Prime Minister. We know that Mr. Warnick mentions the PM 24 times during the call. The audio recording is the latest proof that sheds light on this corruption scandal. Why is the Prime Minister being obstructionist and preventing the Justice Committee from doing its work? The Honourable Government House Leader. As I've said, Canadians have to have the opportunity to hear for themselves, and that is why the Prime Minister waived solicitor-client privilege and cabinet confidence, and why witnesses were able to appear and share their testimony. We know that these meetings took place in public, and now all these facts are public for Canadians to hear, and they can understand for themselves. And we know the system is working. We trust our institutions, and Canadians can also trust them. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Charbonneau-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Canadians aren't trusting this Prime Minister or his government. The Justice Committee and the witnesses that were asked for, Telfer, Mr. Bouchard, Amy Orchard, Ben Chin, Justin Toh, Jessica Price. The Liberals sitting on this committee refused to hear from them. These witnesses had real things to say. So how come the Prime Minister is hiding the truth from Canadians? Let the Justice Committee do its work. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, Canadians can hear this for themselves, and that is why these meetings were held in public. And that's exactly why witnesses were able to share their testimony, even though the Conservatives don't want to hear the facts. But all of these facts are now public so that Canadians can decide for themselves. We know that we can always do better, and that is exactly why the Prime Minister did take responsibility, and that is why he has established additional measures so that we can continue to work for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.